Hey YouTube, Zalkill here, and in 2006 the astronomical community denoted Pluto from a planet, along with all the other 8 in the solar system, to a dwarf planet. But why did they do this, and what will it effect will it have on other objects in the future if we ever find more objects of comparable size in the solar system? Well, Pluto was discovered by Clyde Tombaugh in 1930, and it was called a planet because it was spherical, it was relatively large. I mean, it's smaller than Mercury, but it wasn't as small as a tiny asteroid or something like Ceres, and so they did decide to make it a planet, and it stayed this way for a long time. But then, a couple years before, in 2005, this dwarf planet called Eris was discovered. Eris wasn't discovered until 2005, even if Pluto was discovered in 1930, because Pluto was in the plane of the solar system, while Eris, if you can imagine, this is the plane of the solar system all the planets are in, Eris was down here, and so it was a lot harder for them to notice because most activity doesn't go on there, so they have less of a reason to point their telescopes at it. And Eris was classified as a dwarf planet, which was a term that already existed for quite a few decades, in fact, because there were so many small objects being discovered that we would call asteroids nowadays, or dwarf planets if they're large enough, that beforehand, when they were first discovered, were being called whole planets, such as asteroids like Vesta and Ceres, and they realised this would be too complicated, particularly since nowadays we know there are tens of thousands of asteroids. It's a good thing we didn't decide to say that they're all planets. But anyway, Eris got made a dwarf planet, and this caused a bit of a stir because Eris was originally thought to be larger than Pluto. We now know that it isn't because of the New Horizons probe, but it's only within a couple dozen kilometers of Pluto's diameter. And the main thing is, it's 27% more massive than Pluto, because Pluto's mainly ice, which isn't very dense, and so lots of people got into a stir regarding it being called a dwarf planet, and they called for Pluto to have the same. And so now 3 rules exist on whether something can be classified as a planet. It needs to orbit the major body of the sun. This only applies to our solar system. It needs to have been large enough and massive enough to have crushed itself into a sphere under its own gravity. And the third one, which is a bit more confusing, but it eliminates Pluto, is it needs to have cleared the objects around it. If you go to Earth, there are no objects around it that are strong enough to overcome it, basically, apart from the sun. There are no objects near it that are more powerful than it, because all of those objects merged into the Earth. There is the moon, but it orbits around the Earth, not the other way around, so the Earth is the dominance. But Pluto doesn't have that. It has objects like Neptune and the Kuiper Belt interfering with it, so therefore it isn't a planet.